All right, let's go.
Oop. Okay, there we go.
Trisha, go ahead.
Sorry.
You're good. Oh, okay. Wait, Trisha. Okay. So that was the agenda. So we're gonna start off
Sorry.
with.
Yeah.
You're good. You're good. Don't worry about it. Okay. So we're gonna do the graduation requirements. Then we'll talk about scheduling, timelines, advising, like with the whole advisor situation. I know a lot of people were confused by that. And then sample schedules for me and Trisha. And we have a third med student who just joined. Is Brody here? Trisha? Brody?
Yeah, what up?
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So Brody's our surgery applicant. Since I'm a psych and Trisha's IM, we thought it would be helpful for people applying surgery to have him around. We will go through those sample schedules and then we'll do a Q&A with us three. Okay. So as far as the M4 graduation requirements, everyone has to do a sub-I in one of those 5 specialties, regardless of what you're applying. So even if you're applying opto, if you're applying psych, these are the only 5 that are available. So you have IM, OB, PEDS, surgery, and FM. So I, for example, will have to do one of those. I chose to do IM because I thought it would be most useful to me since I'll be doing a couple months of IM in residency. But you can do whichever one you want, regardless of what you're applying. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, and you can do multiple if you'd like. I know Brody's doing multiple because these are like really a good chance to make an impression at these hospitals. Most people get their letters of recommendation from their sub-I, and it's really important to do these. Let's say you're applying IM, it's really important to do your IM sub-I before you send your application in. Me, for example, since I'm applying psych, there's no such thing as a psych sub-I really. So I'm not doing my IM sub-I till January, and I'm able to do that because I didn't need a letter from it. But this is like a really crucial letter to get into your respective specialty. So make sure you do that if you're applying to one of those 5. Otherwise, you're kind of free to do it whenever you'd like. And just as far as the expectations on a sub-I, what this is it's basically a rotation where you act like a resident. You're treated like a resident, you have resident responsibilities. It's typically pretty demanding, like you'll be coming in 6 days a week on the IM one. You'll be writing multiple notes, you'll be carrying your own patients, your notes are actually billed for. So it's like a pretty tiring rotation, and that's good to keep in mind when you're setting up your schedule. That's why I put it in January, because I felt like I wanted to like focus on my psych app until then. And that way, like I'd have kind of everything out of the way by the time I did my sub-I and I could chill. And you'll see my whole sample schedule and I'll explain it to you when we get there. Aside from that, some suggest taking it before step 2, because especially if you're doing like IM or FM, because they feel like it's super helpful to see a ton of patients and get that experience before you take your step 2. So if you'd like to do that, that's totally a viable option. I personally prefer to take an extra month to study. I know Trisha did hers early, so it's really up to your preference. But as far as the school's requirements, you're not required to take it at any specific point. And yeah, that's it as far as the sub-I. As far as step 2, generally it's recommended before applications. I know some people who push it off literally till after applications, after interviews even. I don't know how that'll work for you guys, considering that your step 1 isn't scored. I don't know if some programs might be a little more expectant of having a step 2 score when you're applying, but I'm assuming generally it's going to be safer too. But something smart would be to just check up on the programs you're applying to. You'll see it on their websites. They'll talk about whether they require a step 2 or a minimum score or whatever. Just make sure you keep that in mind when you're scheduling it. But the way it works is typically most students take it between April and June just to get it out of the way while all the M3 knowledge is fresh. That's what I did. That's what Trisha did as well. And yeah, so that's it as far as step 2. The next requirement is EM clerkship. So this will be course 8160, and you can worry about that way later when you're actually making your schedule. It was just kind of a point of confusion for our class because there's 2 of them. One of them is like more for elective, specifically for EM kids. But what's important is this is basically your only real clerkship in M4. It's the only one that's like exactly like your M3 one, same exact vibes as like your OB or your PEDS rotation, where you got like the strict schedule, these expectations, and you'll be treated a little bit more seriously as an M4. But really, it's pretty much exactly the same as your other rotations, and it's the only thing that you're going to take a shelf for in all of M4. So it'll be your last exam in all of your medical school. You do not need to take it before step 2, and it's actually pretty hard to take it before step 2 because they block out all the EM spots to kids applying EM all the way up till August. So I personally didn't take mine until September, and I think most people, if they wanted to get out of the way like me, just get the last exam out of the way, I'd take it as early as August or September. Otherwise, I know a lot of people taking it in the winter, and I think that's what Trish is doing, right? Yeah. Okay. And then yeah, that's it for EM. The next requirement will be res prep, and you take that in either March or April. It's one of the few things that is less flexible in M4. So you pick between March or April, and this will be like, we're not really sure what we're expecting. We'll see when we get there because there've been some shifts recently since they kind of were doing it virtually for the past few years, and we're going to be like the first ones who are fully in person, I think. So you either do the surgical one or the general one for everyone else. So if you're going into a surgical specialty like gen surge, optho, whatever, you'll do the surgery one. It's more general surgery skills. And then the other one is just general residency skills. I'm assuming it's going to be like interviewing patients and stuff, but it's not like a complete joke of a rotation. So it's kind of a bummer that you have to take that in the winter, because otherwise my winter would be almost completely off. That's pretty much the only serious thing I have. But yeah, that's it for res prep. And then the last thing is TLC, which is just something you can do throughout the year. They block off a month in May, but it's really a month off. But you just have to do 5 teaching requirements throughout your M4 year, or at least that's what it was for our class. Hopefully it doesn't change for yours. That can be like Cato. We offered some stuff through the Butterfly Project where we did some like surgery, oral prep, exam prep, which was super helpful to a lot of M3s. So it's just like scattered on your own time whenever you like, but you'll get them done. I already have mine done, and it's only November, so I had them done really early, and it's definitely possible to get them done quick. So that's it for the graduation requirements. That's literally all you need to graduate.
Awesome. It's such a good point. And with those like Cato, like TLC requirements, if you've got like a really chill rotation where you're like, yeah, I can take an afternoon off and go teach M1s how to present, then like you can do that pretty much whenever, which is what I ended up doing. But okay, I'll go ahead and go forward. So M4 scheduling logistics. So I know Malik said this, but I mean, you all essentially had the pants scared off of you during this first meeting. And so I just want to lay out for you in this slide, like essentially some helpful tips and like logistics around scheduling. So the first thing is your sub-I. So as Malik mentioned, everyone's going to have to do a sub-I in one of those 5 subject areas that he mentioned. So we recommend that you do a sub-I in whatever specialty among those 5 that you choose from before you get around to submitting ERAS. So ERAS submission timeline is around September. So we would recommend that you do a sub-I between the months of April and August, and the sooner the better, of course. And so what your sub-I will allow you to do is it'll allow you to get some rec letters, right? So most specialties will require like 2 specialty specific letters of recommendation plus 1 non-specific. That might be different for other subspecialties. There's like variations across the specialties, but for the most part in those sub-Is, you can get rec letters. Okay, electives. Aside from those 5 requirements that Malik mentioned, you can fill the rest of your schedule with as many electives as you would like. I want you all to know that there's a couple of different online electives that you can choose from. You're allowed to do 1 online elective in total. There's a clinical pharmacology online elective, and then a quality improvement like elective with Dr. Levine. I ended up taking the quality improvement, and so did Malik. And I think Brody did as well. And honestly, it was just like the chillest month. It was like almost like an extra vacation month. But you do get to work on a really cool project in that. So outside of the online elective, you get 1 vacation/interview month. You also get 1 step 2 dedicated study month. And then if you did one of those electives in both your M1, M2 year, or you were in SIL, and if you were in SIL, Dr. Steffi's makes you go through this like verification process to make sure you actually did the work. So if you did one of those, then you can get up to a 3rd month off in addition to that vacation/interview month and that step 2/dedicated month. Sorry, there's actually 1 vacation month and 1 interview month. It's not either or. You get like 2 of those. You get a vacation month and an interview month. And then if you wanted, and if research is part of your interests, you can do a research elective, and sometimes those can be done remotely. So if you add it up, like with the 1 vacation month, 1 interview month, your SIL/elective month, or M1, M2 elective month, and that interview month, you can possibly get up to 4 months off, like of vacation during your 4th year. And so the other rule, and I'm not sure if they mentioned this to you guys, or if this was a little bit confusing when it was mentioned to you, but your interview and vacation months cannot be scheduled within the same 3-month block due to a course credit minimum requirement. And when Malik and I show you our sample schedules, we will show you visually what it means to get time off, but not have both of those within the same 3-month period. The final piece of advice that I have for you all when it comes to M4 scheduling logistics is pretty soon you're going to have to schedule your first 3 months of your M4 year. And then after that, sometime in March, you'll schedule the rest of your M4 year. When you're doing both of those and you're going through the course catalog, it should be on Academica under registration. So when you're going through that course catalog, make sure that you write down not just the 4-digit course code, but the 5-digit course code as well. And the reason that I say that is the 5-digit course code is specific not just to the rotation, it's specific to the month that you want to take it in and the specific location, like which hospital you want to rotate at. And so make sure you don't just have a 4-digit code for your courses, make sure you get the 5-digit code. It's going to help you when it comes time to actually plugging in all of those courses in Academica. But enough about this. If you have questions, you're welcome to put them in the chat, or hang on to them at the very end if you want to say them out loud. But either way, just hang on to those questions for now. We'll get through everything, and hopefully this will clear some stuff up for y'all.
And just really quick, Brody just texted me to mention this. I think it's a good idea. You can create a plan. So you make your schedule, and this is something that we'll talk about later. We'll probably hold a whole scheduling session for you guys just to make things extra clear. But you can make a plan for your schedule, and that's what almost all of us did pretty much. You set it in stone kind of in your schedule builder that you're gonna get access to. And then when it's time to sign up for stuff, you kind of just like pull up your plan and just register for them like one by one really quick. It's super easy. So yeah.
That's awesome advice, Brody and Malik. Like, it made my life a lot easier when it came time to actually putting that stuff in Academica, but that's also a good idea. We'll do like a separate entire walkthrough on how to do scheduling. But all right, onward.
All right, so here are the timelines. So let's start with step 2. First thing you do for step 2, and I'm sure most of you have done this at this point because you got so scared last week or whenever that orientation was, you register for a 3-month period. And like I said, most people take it between April and June. So in that time period, you can pick your specific date whenever you want. There's really no rush for it. And that comes after your approval. From there, you pick your specific testing location, and then you can keep moving your date around as long as it's within a few weeks. I'm not sure what the exact grace period is, but it's relatively okay. Just keep that in mind and you won't really mess it up. So typically a lot of people take 1 month, but a lot of people also take 2 months. Personally, I took 2 months. Trisha took about 6 weeks. For me, I honestly really think I attribute like a lot of my success on step 2 to the fact that I had 2 months. I didn't feel rushed. I felt like I was able to get through a lot of the U World. I was able to review a lot of Words and Beyond lectures. Like, it really, really felt good to have those 2 months. I didn't feel rushed. So what I did to take 2 months was I scheduled my Levine elective first, straight out of M3. And then after that, I scheduled my step 2 dedicated month. And anyone can do that. You can just schedule an online elective or whatever for your first month, or you can even take a vacation month if you'd like, whatever works for you. But I would really recommend personally taking 2 months for step 2. Let me see, is there anything? Oh,
sorry, Malik, real quick.
Yeah.
We'll have a visual at the end of this presentation with Malik's and my schedule, so you can see visually like how he was able to schedule 8 full weeks to study for step 2. I just want to put that out there.
We'll make that super clear. Don't worry about it. Thanks for mentioning that. Okay. So next thing is ERS. As far as ERS, the portal itself opens for editing in September, but you can work on your application far before that. So typically what people do is they'll work on their applications throughout the whole summer, and then around the time September rolls around, people will have like everything kind of ready to go and just start finalizing finishing touches. And then the actual submission date for us at least was September 28th. So basically, any application that gets sent from the beginning of September to the end of September, that will show up in all programs as September 28th, whether you submit on September 1st, September 2nd, September 15th, or September 28th, it's going to come up as September 28th. So you do not benefit from submitting early, but it doesn't hurt either, obviously. So just keep that in mind. You have all September, and like that date doesn't come till the very end of it. So no rush to submit your app, because it does not put you at a disadvantage to be a little bit slower if you'd like. I submitted mine on like the 25th or something. And then as far as the supplemental, that's brand new. It's something that our class is the first class to do. I feel like it really shook things up, and we'll definitely have like a session on that later. I don't think you guys should be worrying about it at all right now. It's really not relevant to anything to do with M3. So please don't even think about it until like more application time comes around. But you'll work on it alongside your main ERAS app. And then the one other thing to keep in mind is letters. I know a lot of people are stressed out about letters and getting them. I want you to know that you do not need, you could finish M3 with 0 letters. And I know a lot of people who did, literally 0 letters. You can get all your letters in M4 if you'd like. As Trisha said, you're gonna want 2 from your specialty and 1 outside of it, typically, unless there's exceptions in specialties that I'm not aware of. But in general, that seems to be the rule. So that's why so many people schedule like specialty specific rotations early in their M4 so they can really get those letters. And then you can get a letter in an outside specialty if you'd like in the other months leading up to the application. But they get submitted with everything else on the 28th. One thing to keep in mind, and again, this is honestly not something you should be worrying about right now, but letter writers can be slow and unresponsive. So typically what a lot of us do is we kind of set a deadline for them to be the beginning of September. So we have like some time to work with if we have to like hunt them down to really put that letter in, because that's kind of one of the few things in the application season that's out of your control. And so it can be really stressful. I had a pretty stressful experience, and that's why I think it's really important to just keep that in mind. But so they say like deadline for receiving letters is generally like you shouldn't get a letter out of a rotation later than July, but it's definitely possible to get a letter in August or even September if you're proactive enough about it. So that's about it for the timelines.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Malik. The other thing that we wanted to address with all of you is the advisor situation. So I know that there was some stress and some confusion around this. So what we'd like to do here is clarify what the role of the advisor is, how you're going to get an advisor, and the difference between an advisor versus your MSPE letter writer. So the advisor, their really only role is to approve of your M4 schedule before you register. So you're going to have to fill out this weird looking table within Microsoft Word that says like, hey, please select up to 3 options for what you would like to do for this month. And so I'm sorry, guys, I'm just going to admit the folks trying to join the Zoom. And so what you'll have to do is you'll like put in that Word document when you want to take certain courses, the different options of the courses, like electives that you would want to do. And then you're going to take that to an advisor. So your advisor might make recommendations, and I have underlined and italicized that for a reason. They are truly recommendations. The power of making these decisions rests in your hands, okay? So they'll make recommendations for the electives. If you want advice from your advisor beyond this, that is your choice. So what do I mean by beyond this? If you have questions about how do I increase my competitiveness for this residency, you're welcome to ask them that. You certainly can. But if you want a bare bones role, their like role is pretty much just to approve of your M4 schedule and make recommendations. Okay. So you're going to want to pick an advisor who is related to your specialty. So for example, I'm applying internal medicine. I had an IM advisor. I believe Malik also had an psych advisor, and Brody had a surgery related advisor. So there will be a sign up sheet, like a literal Google Excel sheet that goes out, and it's going to have all of the different faculty advisors and their associated specialty and their contact information next to it. There's a long list of advisors across specialties. So none of you will be left without an advisor, and none of you have to scramble to get an advisor. I want to make that very clear. Like it will be, when the time comes, it will all be laid out for you. And you'll be able to contact your advisor and get in touch with them as soon as possible. But just to remove some of the stress from this, I just want to really reiterate the role of the advisor is just to approve your M4 schedule before you register. That is it. So MSPE letter writer, what's the difference between that and your advisor? So your MSPE letter writer is, first of all, it's an entirely separate role from what your advisor does. Your MSPE letter writer will write so MSPE stands for like medical student performance evaluation or something like that. It's oh, Malik's giving me a thumbs up. So it's a letter that's written for every single medical student. It details how you have performed over the last 4 years, any like gaps in your schedules or anything that's like unexplained. It'll sort of explain and add some color to your medical school experience. It'll show how you performed in your first 2 years and how you did in M3 and M4. You know, all of those comments that you're getting in new innovations on your performance in 3rd year, those comments go into your MSPE letter. So let me tell you a little bit about how I had 2 different people as my advisor and my MSPE letter writer. So my advisor, since I'm applying internal medicine, my advisor was Dr. Levine. My MSPE letter writer was Dr. Chadwell. So Dr. Chadwell is a family medicine doctor, but everyone who writes these MSPE letters are trained to write them, and there's like a template that they follow. You are also very involved in the MSPE letter writing process. So you'll actually meet with the person who's writing your MSPE letter, and you will go through their letter detail by detail. And if you don't like something in it, you can change it. If you don't like a comment that a resident or an attending wrote about you on new innovations, you can get rid of it. Like, there's a lot more power in your hands than you realize. I see some questions here. Yeah, Brody said they edit out any negative comments. Someone says, do we choose MSPE letter writer? That's a really good question. So Miss Tracy Edie is going to be the contact person for the MSPE letter writers. And I just want to stress real quick that the MSPE letter writer is not relevant right now. That will really be more relevant closer to the end of your 3rd year and at the beginning of your 4th year. I remember actually requesting Dr. Chadwell from Miss Edie. So I sent Miss Edie an email and said, hey, I'd really like Dr. Chadwell to be my letter writer because I just felt like it. But if you're okay with just being assigned to a letter writer, and I think it's based off of your last name. Each letter writer is given like a chunk of students based on alphabetical order, and then they'll write those letters for those students, unless you reach out to Miss Edie and request separately. Please do not bug Miss Edie right now about that. I want to make that also very clear. She is a treasure to Wayne. Please don't hurt her. Okay. Yes, Malik got Dr. Waynia, who is awesome. All right. So I hope this clarifies the difference between the advisor role and the MSPE letter writer role. So onward and forward. All right, so this is our sample schedules. Malik, do you want to go first, and you can, do you want to explain the color coding as well, if you don't mind?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Okay.
So I had to like think about it for a sec. The color coding is basically just to make the blocks very clear. Like we said, you can't take the vacation month and the interview month in the same block. So every time the color changes, that's a new block. So April through June is your first block, then July through September and so on. Okay, so my schedule, and I'm very happy with this schedule. I would highly recommend it to anybody. Right out of M3, I wanted to get step 2 out of my face. So I started with the Levine elective as like my break month to just start studying. It's
Malik,
so
I'm
chill.
sorry. 1 second. Yeah. Can you tell people the order of your 3rd year clerkship rotations before you start with? Yeah, thank you.
So I started on Gen Surg and I ended on like the mini rotation, Psych FM or whatever. So I had internal medicine relatively near the end. So obviously internal medicine is like 70% of step 2. So it's like super important. And like the fact that I had it so fresh was super helpful to me. And I wanted to take advantage of that. So April, Levine elective, basically study month, couple modules, presentation, that's the whole thing. You can get it done in a few days. There's like no time requirements or whatever, like you just do it on your own time. So I just got it done really quick and then I went straight into my step 2 studying. Then May was my dedicated month. So that was another complete month off where I was just studying. I took my step 2 on May 28th. I had 3 days off before I started my next psych rotation, which was a little nuts of me, but I mean, I was happy with my score. So to me, it was worth it. To others, I think it's totally fine to take a few extra weeks off and like just take it in mid-May if you want. I think Trisha did something similar. She took 6 weeks. So whatever you like, but I had 3 days off, went to my next psych rotation. This was basically the equivalent of a sub-I for me because, like I said, there's no official psych sub-I, but this is where I needed my letter from. And then July I did another psych rotation. I did emergency psych, and I actually didn't get a letter from that. I had a letter from my 3rd year, so I didn't need that. August, I took nephro consults just to have like some kind of medicine exposure and keep it fresh in my head. I took it at St. John's. I loved it. That was about it. And then September, I did my required EM, just get it out of the way, get that last shelf done. October, I took off. November, I took radiology. I initially wanted radiology in October and take November off because that's what almost everyone does. I think like a vast majority of the class takes November off because it's such an interview heavy month for almost every single specialty. I made the change last second because I realized I was signed up for like a pretty rigorous course in October and I wanted it to be more chill. But at that point, radiology was full, so I had to move. I had to switch my vacay and my radiology, which is fine because radiology has basically been a vacay month. I have gone in like 3 times this month, so that tells you about that. December, I'm doing outpatient, which is also super chill for the most part. It's like pretty new. I think it just started this year. You can request a location and you'll be with like an outpatient doctor. Most of them are so chill, like it's just clinic and like typically like 8 to 5 or whatever, but like you can probably get days off. Interviews, I'm not worried about at all. Like if I need a day or 2 off for interviews, I don't anticipate there being any issue whatsoever. So again, so really you're going to realize the structure that most M4s take is they make October, November, December, and maybe even a little bit of January chill because that's the interview heavy months. And that's the time you really need that flexibility to like take days off whenever, especially if you're going to have a lot of interviews. January, I did not take a chill month, lump my sub-I in there because I had been pushing it off so much. So I'm getting my sub-I done in January. After that, I'm basically done. Scheduled my vacay in February. March is residency prep. And then April, I had an extra vacation month because I did the M1 and M2 electives. So I took my other vacation month there. And then May is the TLC month that's basically already off. So as you can see, my schedule is very top heavy. I like the idea of just front loading, getting stuff out of the way, and just having all my time off up until residency, and just like kind of enjoying the rest of M4. So you can schedule it however you want, but that's the approach I took. And now Trisha will go through hers for some variety here.
I just see a question in the chat. Oh, okay, never mind. For 4th year, do you observe the Wayne State holidays? Also for the month of December, do you get the winter break off? Okay, so that's a really good question. For 4th year, you do observe the Wayne holidays. So like Labor Day, you would have off. July 4th, if it falls during the week, you get that off. For the month of December, do you get the winter break off? So Harry, just to make sure I'm understanding, are you referring to that sort of 10-day period that you had, or that week off that you get between your December rotation and your January rotation? Is that what you're referring to? Or just like the holidays?
Yeah, so like usually we get December 22nd to like January 1st off here in 3rd year. I think we also got it for 2nd year. Do you get it on your 4th year as well?
So that actually is going to depend on the hospital. The thing is, in 4th year, they kind of treat you more closely to the residents than they do to the med students. And so it's not guaranteed, but I'm sure if you work with your residents and say, hey, like, I'd really like to go home between the 25th and like New Year, like you might be able to get it, but without a dedicated vacation month, that might be a little bit challenging.
It's
Then
definitely
again,
not a given, for
yeah,
sure.
it's not a given. Yeah, that's the thing. That's a good question though, Harry. I appreciate you asking that. All right, so I'll go ahead and tell you all. Oh, did I see something in the chat? Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're welcome. So I'll go ahead and go through my schedule. And just for context, so I rotated at Henry Ford for my 3rd year. I started off on internal medicine. And then my very last rotations were OB-GYN and pediatrics. So effectively, by the time April of M4 rolled around, it had been an entire year since I had done medicine. So I decided I am not going to study for step 2 right off the bat. I would actually like to remind myself of a little bit of internal medicine in the hospital before I take that time off to study. So I ended up starting on my IM sub-I. And the other reason that I started right out of the gates doing my IM sub-I was I knew that, okay, I want to apply internal medicine and I would like to rotate at my home institution. I wanted to rotate at Henry Ford for my sub-I. I also knew that the Henry Ford sub-I can be like highly coveted. So it can get pretty competitive to get that spot when it comes to like June or July. So I decided, okay, because most of my class is probably going to be studying for step 2 in April, I'm going to go ahead and snag that Henry Ford internal medicine sub-I spot in April. Do you have to do your sub-I at a home institution? You do not. So I have friends who rotated with me in 3rd year at Henry Ford who ended up doing their sub-I at Carmanos. And it worked out perfectly fine for them. Like it worked out beautifully. They ended up getting letters from those people. This is just what I wanted to do based on my own preferences, because I felt comfortable using the EMR at Henry Ford. And I knew the residents. And so I thought, okay, like, because I am like hitting the ground running right after third year, let me put myself in a situation where I'll feel comfortable. That being said, you don't need to absolutely be at your home institution for your sub-I in order to be successful, if that helps, Nyla. So I ended up completing my sub-I in April, reminded myself of a little bit of internal medicine since that makes up the majority of step 2. And then May, I scheduled my step 2 dedicated month. So for those 4 weeks, I didn't do anything except study for step 2. And then in June, I scheduled Dr. Levine's QI online elective. And as Malik said, it's like a very self-directed course. Like Dr. Levine will have a Zoom meeting with you on the first day of the month just to go over the course requirements. And then she herself will be like, you don't have to see me until the last day of this course. You can just do everything on your own. You're welcome to reach out to her as and when you want. And so I had actually heard from someone who was the year above me say, you know, that's actually a really good month to study for step 2 because you don't have to do anything on a daily basis, and it kind of feels like a vacation month. So here are like some of the little hacks from us to you so that you can sort of get in this extra study time or extra vacation time as needed. And so I ended up taking step 2 6 weeks into my study time. So I took step 2 about June 13th, and that actually left me with 2 weeks of basically vacation. So I ended up coming home to my parents in California, staying with them for a couple of weeks, sort of decompressing from studying for step 2 because it is still stressful, before coming back to Detroit in July. So in July, and again, I'm applying internal medicine, so I knew I wanted to do some IM related electives. So I chose to do a palliative and hospice consult and clinic service at Carmanos. I cannot recommend this elective enough to y'all. Like it's a relatively it's an easygoing rotation, but you're going to learn skills in having some pretty tough conversations with patients and their families. And it's just so gratifying. I highly recommend it. And also July is around the time where you might want to start putting together, if you haven't done it up until that point, that might be the time where you start like putting together your ideas or like a rough draft of your personal statement. That's what I did. And so that was a good rotation to sort of just like sit down and think about all these different things. It was a really inspiring rotation. So then after that, I decided to do a cardiology consult service at DMC. I just see something in the chat, maybe we'll address. Any thoughts on scheduling my peds sub-I in April right after surgery? Nufi, yeah, I think that's totally reasonable to do a peds sub-I, like if you know that that's what you want to do. Yeah, I think that's totally fair. And you also get that 1 week off after your surgery rotation. So you'll have a week to sort of rest and recuperate, and then you can jump right into your peds sub-I. I think that makes sense. Oh, cards consults. Okay. Yeah, I don't know how to read an EKG, and so that's why I wanted to do cardiology consult service. Also, the residents at DMC were so nice. I was like, guys, I'll write an occasional note, but I'm really just trying to write, like figure out my personal statement. And so they were nice enough to like let me talk to the patients, ask the patients questions, like try to come up with my own plan. Didn't really make me do any documentation, thank God, because not getting paid for that right now. And they helped me like flesh out ideas for my personal statement. It was great. So and put together your CV. So like that July, August timeframe, you really want to start putting together your CV and getting all that ready to go. So September, I chose to do radiology at Henry Ford. And the reason I picked September is that September is basically ERAS crunch time month. I knew that I wanted enough time in order to like really nitpick and finalize my application. The nice thing about radiology at Henry Ford is that you're there from 8 a.m. to maybe 10 a.m. at the latest, and then the rest of the day is yours. And so it was ideal to really work on my app. And then I was part of the street medicine board. So October, I did a street med elective, absolutely loved it. And it was, so in October, at least for internal medicine, you'll start to get residency interview invites at that point. And so you'll want to be in a place where you've got access to good Wi-Fi. That way, as soon as you get the interview invite, you're able to jump on that invite and schedule your interview. You don't, even if you're on like a hospital rotation that's a little bit intense, that's okay. You'll still get an interview spot wherever you've been interviewed at. That's now a rule. There are, I think Malik and Brody, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this year there was a rule change with the AAMC that they have to offer as many interview spots to the number of interviewees that they invite. So you're
That's
not
correct.
fighting
They
for,
can't. Yeah, they're not allowed
they
to
crack
over
down on
invite.
that. Yeah, exactly. So you're not competing for a spot when you get invited, basically. So then it's November right now. I'm on a vacation month. And then in December, I'll be doing the SIL elective. And in January, I'll be doing a vacation month. So basically, I just want to draw your attention to this. Okay. So if you notice here, November, December, January, this is basically 3 vacation months in a row. But you have to be smart about how you schedule your vacation time. Because I wouldn't be able to do October, November, December, like vacation, SIL elective, because it doesn't meet the minimum number of course requirements that I'm supposed to take. And so I scheduled vacation November, SIL elective December, because that technically counts as a course credit. And then January, which is an entirely new 3-month block, I scheduled a vacation there. So that's like a hack on how you can get those 3-month vacation times in a row. Do you mind sharing the presentation? Yes. Okay, Malik already got that. All right, so then February, I'll be doing emergency medicine at St. John. March is when I'm going to be doing my residency prep course. Right now, I've scheduled a medical ICU elective in April, just so that I can be a super prepared intern, but I might change that. We'll see. And then May is your TLC course. So I hope that clarifies some things if you're applying to internal medicine and to psych. And so what we'll do right now is we'll go ahead and stop recording, and you're free to